What Bradley Walsh did during my chase episode left everyone speechless. Have you ever imagined standing on the stage of one of the most famous quiz shows on television, with the lights shining brightly, the audience watching closely, and Bradley Walsh standing right in front of you? For many fans, appearing on The Chase is a dream come true. For me, it was something I had talked about with friends for years, never truly believing it would happen. But one day, that dream turned into reality, and what happened during my episode became a moment I will never forget. The day began early. I remember waking up feeling a mix of excitement and nerves that made it almost impossible to sit still. I kept thinking about all the times I had watched the show from my sofa, shouting answers at the television, feeling confident that I could do well if I ever had the chance. But standing there in real life is completely different. The cameras, the crew, the energy in the studio, it all makes your heart race in a way you cannot fully prepare for. When I arrived at the studio, everything felt surreal. The set looked exactly like it does on television, but somehow even bigger and brighter in person. The production team was incredibly welcoming, helping contestants relax and explaining how everything would work. Still, no matter how calm they tried to make us feel, there was a quiet tension in the air. Everyone wanted to do their best. Then came the moment we met Bradley Walsh. If you have ever watched the show, you already know that Bradley has a reputation for being warm, funny, and quick with a joke. But what surprised me was just how genuine he was when the cameras weren't even rolling. The moment he walked onto the set, the entire atmosphere changed. It was as if someone had switched on a light. He greeted everyone with a smile and immediately started chatting with contestants like we were old friends. When he came over to me, he shook my hand and asked where I was from. Before I could even finish answering, he cracked a joke about my hometown that had everyone nearby laughing. It instantly broke the tension. My nerves began to fade, replaced by excitement. Once filming began, everything moved quickly. The lights came on, the familiar theme music echoed around the studio, and suddenly we were right in the middle of the action. When it was my turn to step forward, I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Bradley introduced me to the audience with his usual charm, asking about my job, my hobbies, and what I would do if I won the prize money. I mentioned something about wanting to travel and maybe treat my family to a special holiday. Bradley raised an eyebrow and jokingly asked if I planned to invite him along. The audience laughed, and I joked back that he would have to answer a few quiz questions first if he wanted a seat on the plane. From that moment on, the exchange between us became one of the highlights of the episode. Bradley kept teasing me in a friendly way, and every time I answered a question correctly, he reacted with exaggerated excitement, clapping his hands and pretending to be shocked. But the moment that left everyone speechless came later, and it happened completely unexpectedly. During a break in the game, after I had managed to answer a particularly tricky question, Bradley suddenly paused and looked straight at me with a grin. He turned to the audience and said something along the lines of, "I think we might have a new quiz champion here." Everyone applauded, and I laughed nervously, not quite believing what was happening. Then Bradley did something that no one seemed to anticipate. Instead of moving straight to the next question, he stepped closer and began jokingly coaching me as if he were part of my team. He started giving playful encouragement, saying things like, "Right, keep that confidence going. Don't let the chaser see you sweat." The audience loved it. The other contestants were laughing, and even the crew members behind the cameras were smiling. It was a small moment, but it felt incredibly special. In the middle of a high-pressure game show, Bradley had taken the time to turn the situation into something lighthearted and memorable. As the round continued, the tension started to build. Every correct answer felt like a small victory, and every second on the clock seemed to move faster than the last. But thanks to Bradley's energy and humor, the entire experience felt less like a stressful competition and more like an unforgettable adventure. At one point, after I gave an answer that turned out to be correct, Bradley leaned back dramatically and placed his heart over his heart as if he had just witnessed something astonishing. "You're making this look easy," he joked. The audience erupted with laughter again. Moments like that are what make the chase so enjoyable to watch, but being there in person makes them even more magical. Throughout the episode, Bradley continued to interact with contestants in ways that felt spontaneous and genuine. He teased people, celebrated good answers, and somehow managed to keep the entire room smiling even when the pressure was high. By the time my segment ended, I realized something surprising. Yes, the quiz questions were exciting. Yes, the competition was intense. But the thing I would remember most was the atmosphere Bradley created. His humor, his kindness, and his ability to connect with people turned what could have been a nerve-wracking experience into something truly joyful. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, he once again came over to chat with the contestants. He thanked us for being part of the show and joked that we had made his job much more entertaining that day. It was a simple gesture, but it meant a lot. Walking out of the studio later, I felt a mixture of pride, relief, and happiness. Appearing on The Chase seemed like a distant dream, something that happened to other people, but now it had happened to me. And the most surprising part of the entire experience was how one unexpected moment from Bradley Walsh turned an exciting day into a story I will probably tell for the rest of my life. Even now, whenever friends ask me what it was like to be on the show, I always find myself smiling as I remember that moment when Bradley paused the game, looked straight at me, and turned the whole situation into something unforgettable. It reminded me that sometimes the most memorable experiences aren't just about winning or losing. They're about the people who make the journey fun along the way. And if there is one thing I learned from that day, it is this. When you combine a brilliant quiz show, a room full of excited contestants, and a host who knows exactly how to keep everyone smiling, you end up with moments that viewers and contestants will remember for years. If you enjoy stories like this and love hearing about surprising behind-the-scenes moments from popular television shows, make sure to stay tuned for more stories that reveal what really happens when the cameras are rolling. Because sometimes the most unexpected moments are the ones that make the biggest memories.